Okay, hello everybody. So in this training, I will show you how to use this Data Plus platform. So you can read first the PDF briefing, and in this training, I will show you how to do the transcription practically. So first of all, as you see, we have web form here. We need to capture, we need to select the audio and to transcribe it per segment.
Ja, jeg lurer litt på
So
Ja,
in this
jeg lurer litt
training, we will use this sample in Norwegian language, but you will have your target language in the project. For example, for Romanian people, you will have Romanian audio index. So we have two options. We have two options to transcribe automatically with the tool ISR. In this icon parameter, you can put the ISR option into yes or no. If you put in the yes option like this by default, so when you select,
det her jeg kan spørre om? Er det her jeg kan spørre om
you will
det?
see that ISR will convert automatically
Ja, da har du kommet
all
til
text.
riktig sted. Det er bare Er det noe spesifikt du lurer på?
And in this
Ja,
case,
jeg lurer litt på
if you use this option to do the segmentation first, we don't need to wait the result because in some case, the result may be shown after few seconds. So, we don't need to wait, but do first segmentation of all audio, of the whole audio. And after that, we can see that we have the text transcribed automatically by the tool. But after the segmentation, we need to put it to no option. Why? Because if we touch the segmentation after, if we need to correct some wrong transcription, some wrong segmentation, so the tool will retranscribe. So to avoid retranscription, we need to put its parameter to no option. So, for example, if we need to move some segmentation line, there is no automatic modification. So when you do the segmentation, you need to think about the briefing, how to segment correctly, especially if we have a new speaker, we need to stop the selection and to create a new segment like we do. Because we have here two different speakers.
Er
Example,
det her jeg kan spørre om det?
this is
Er
the
det her jeg
speaker
kan spørre om det?
one, and
Ja,
this
da har du
is
kommet til riktig sted. Det er bare, er det noe
second
spesifikt
one.
du lurer på? Ja, da har du kommet.
In the briefing, we see that there will be two speakers, the C1 and C01. C1 is for customer. It may be the client who asks some information, who need to ask from the customer service device, for example. And the 01 is the customer service. It may be the person in charge to respond the request of the client or the person in charge of to respond, for example, the client about what his request or his the service that the enterprise provides. So there is two speakers in our transcription job. We need to listen and to understand if it's the C1 or C01. At the first time, we need to select the gender of the two people. For example, in your case,
Er det her jeg kan spørre om det?
you need
Er det
to
her jeg kan
select
spørre om det?
female,
Er
for
det her jeg
example.
kan spørre om det? Er det her jeg kan.
If it's a female one,
Ja, da har du kommet til riktig
and
sted. Det er bare, er det noe spesifikt du lurer på? Ja, da har du kommet til riktig.
the same to the second speaker.
Er det her jeg kan spørre om det?
We need to correct if there is wrong words or wrong punctuation that we have from the automatic transcription. For example, we need to begin the sentence by the majuscule, the capital letter. So we need to correct. And in your briefing, we need to, for example, if there is some repeated word, the speaker repeat, for example, 3 times this word, we need to put 3 times the word. We need also to put all modal words. For example, if the people say, yeg. So in this case, we need to put the A. If the people pronounce M at the end, example, yeg. So in this case, we need to write it like this correctly. And if there is some cut word, for example, if the people say romet, so we need to put in the cut word and put at the end of the cut word the hyphens That means that this word was cut, so we need to write all words pronounced by each speaker. And for
Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted.
example,
Det er bare Er det noe spesifikt du lurer på?
this is
Ja,
wrong.
da har du kommet til riktig
You
sted.
don't
Det er
need
bare
to
Er
put
det noe
comma
spesifikt du lurer
after
på?
the full
Ja,
stop.
da har du kommet til riktig
You don't need to put the comma after the full stop, so I correct it. And there is a wrong word here. So this is the correct. So as we see in the briefing, the maximum duration that we can have is 8 seconds. Example, you can see the duration here. Example, in your case, this second segment have the duration of 4.3 seconds. And we can't exceed 8 seconds. That is the maximum that we can have. So
Ja, jeg lurer litt på hvis jeg
in case of we have a long sentence, in average, a sentence is about 6 seconds. But in case of we have a long sentence, we need to split in 2 parts like this, because this is a long sentence. This
Ja, jeg lurer litt
with this one,
Dekkes dette av forsikringen?
a long sentence is spoken by C1 in our case. So
Ja, jeg
C1
lurer litt på hvis jeg er involvert i en ulykke eller annen nødsituasjon. Ja, jeg lurer
and it's
Dekkes
not
dette av
finished, but
forsikringen? Dekkes
it's not finished, but the sentence continue. So if for example, if we put together these 2 segments, we'll see that the 8 seconds will the total duration will exceed the 8 seconds, so we need to split to stop like this. In the case of
er involvert i en
when I
ulykke eller
select,
annen
for
nødsituasjon,
example,
er involvert
when I select the segment and
Dekkes dette Dekkes dette Dekkes dette Ja, jeg lurer
for
litt
example,
Ja, jeg lurer litt på hvis jeg er involvert i en ulykke eller annen nødsituasjon, dekkes Ja, jeg lurer litt på hvis jeg er involvert i en Hvis jeg er involvert
we see that, for example, we have the maximum duration here, 8 seconds, but the sentence continue. So in this case, we need to stop at the lowest point of the wave, for example, here. Then we need to have new segment because the total duration, the wall will be greater than 8 seconds. So that's why we need
Ja,
to have two
ja, da har du kommet Ja,
parts
jeg lurer
here.
Dekkes dette av forsikringen? Dekkes dette av forsikringen?
So when you do the segmentation, you can see the sentence is spoken by the same speaker and have a duration more than 8 seconds. In this case, we need to stop. We can turn back like this. So stop when we see that we need to stop because the sentence continue and it exceed the 8 seconds. We need to stop at the lowest point, the blank, for example, here, and continue after that the segmentation. In this first segment, we need to stop here because there is a new speaker, 01, for the
Ja,
case
så har
of
du
the
kodet
second
til-
segment. So we need to stop and create a new segment, both different speakers. If same speaker, we need to put maximum segments less than 8 seconds. But if different speaker, we need to create a new speaker, a new segment. Okay. So after the segmentation, if we need to correct some segmentation, for example, we see, for example, in the case of, we see that all these first two segments need to be merged because spoken by the same speaker. In this case, we need to merge. And in some case, we need to split because we will listen, and we can hear that there is two speakers who speak in the same segment, so we need to split. In this case, we can use the shortcuts we can see in this icon, and not this icon, but this keyboard icon, shortcuts, case, and especially you can see seg splitting here in this tab, how to split to segment. Segmenting means splitting. So if you need to split one segment into two segments, you need to press the Alt key on your keyboard, then click where you need to split. And if you want to merge, you need first to select multiple segments by pressing your Shift key. And after that, we can merge by pressing the H key. So if you need to merge, for example, these two segments, you need to select by pressing Shift key and clicking with your mouse. So we can see that we have two segments here selected because the background is in green color. That means that we selected this those two segments. So if we want to merge, we need to press after that the H key. So we click on OK. And you see that we have a splitted segment, merge segment here. And don't forget to put space between the two texts merged, because with merge, there is no space between the two texts. So be careful about to put the space between the two texts merged. Okay, so in the real case of our segment,
Det her jeg kan spørre om det? Ja, da har du kommet til
we
riktig.
see that there is two speakers who speak in the in this segment, so we need to split because of a new speaker need a new segment. The golden rule that we need to remember is to don't put in the same segment speeches of two different speakers. There will be the speech of one speaker in every segment. If there is two speeches that you write down in the same segment, it will be the wrong one. If there is two people, the two speakers speak in the same time, we will use the overlap, but in this case, we need to write down the speech of one speaker. We will see that after how to do that, but to split the segment, we need to click the Alt key and press where we want to split, for example, here, here. So
Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted. Det er bare
let's split it. We need to adjust like this. And we need to put a bit space after and before the each segment like this. Not much more, that is not okay. But like this is okay. That is okay. We can have a bit space before and after, except if we have a noise. For example, if it's a noise here, we need to put out of the segment, so we can do that. If it's a noise at the beginning or at the end, but if there is a noise, we can have a bit space like this, because before at the beginning, maybe we have noises like the noise of for example, like this, or maybe a noise of a knocking, a dog barking. If it's at the beginning or at the end, a noise, maybe a laughing, a counting. So if it's at the beginning or at the end, we need to put the noise out the segment. But if it's in the middle, we need to choose this option, the noise option, to yes. If we have some noises like laughing, counting, knocking, we have something like this. It's a noise. If there is a dog barking or background not in normal mode, but we can hear a noise, so we need to put, in this case, the noise option into yes. But if there is no noise, we can select the noise, the no option and option here. And when you split segments, you see that there is
Ja,
the
så har du
content is
Er det her jeg kan spørre om det?
was duplicated. So you need to
Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det her jeg kan spørre om det?
So for the first segment, I will delete this. So correct this like this, because we will write down it for the case before, but the correct one is like this.
Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted.
And,
det er bare, er det noe spesifikt du lurer på?
We need to
Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted.
delete
Det er bare...
the wrong
Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det her jeg kan spørre om det?
words, the part that we don't need to put in the segment. That is how to merge, how to split. So we don't need to catch if we have some blanks between segments like this, like this, like this. We don't need to catch if we have blanks between our segments. But if we have a blank, for example, in the middle of the speech of the same speaker, we can put the blank in the segment. For example,
Ja, jeg dekkes dette av forsikringen?
We have a blank here, but it's in the middle of the speech of the same speaker. And if it's less, the total length is less than 8 seconds, we can include the blank in the segment. Okay?
Ja, så bør man gjøre et par
For example, here we have a blank, but it's in the middle of a speech of
står i ulykken, så
of this speaker, and the total length is less than 8 seconds. So we include the blank, the pause here in the segment. Our briefing said that if we have a pause less than 2 seconds, we can include the pause in the segment. But if we have a blank more than 2 seconds, 1 second is like this. We have 1 second, 2 seconds. So 2 seconds is very long, a very long pause. Here we have about 1 second pauses. So we can include, but if the pause will be more than 2 seconds, then we need to stop the current segment and open a new one, even if it's the same speaker, because that is the rule. You can see that this rule in the briefing. So it's very rare to have a long pause, more than 2 seconds, but in general, pause are about 1 second, maybe less than 1 second. So don't need to create one new one segment in this case. No, that is the option of the noise. If there is no noise, so we put the segment into
Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det
the option no noise, the end option. And for the second option, the HM by default it's in no option, no HM. HM we need to put on yes if the speaker is telling something and in the target language and the speaker sing, for example. So we need in this case to put the lyric and put the HM option into yes. Or if the people rapping is rapping, in this case, HM will be yes. But in general, if the speaker speak normally, so the HM is in no option. How to use the overlap option? If the speaker speak correctly alone without overlapping, overlap mean in same times. But if, for example, the speaker
Er det her
say,
jeg kan spørre om det? Er det her 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 jeg kan
and for example, here, the second speaker say a short word, for example, say yes or yeah in Norwegian language. So in this case, we need to create a new segment and write down what the speaker was telling about in this case. But the overlap is, for example, in the case of the two speakers speaking the same times. For example, we can have for example, here, we can hear for this that the two speakers spoke in the same time. So we need to put overlap in this case. And remember that our golden rule that we can put only one speech of one people in the segment, in one segment. So we can write down, we can choose if we can understand correctly what the speaker was telling about. We can choose to write the speech of the first or the second speaker, not the two speaker, only one. In this case, the first people said, and the second one said A for chicory. So if I decide to write the speech of the 001 speaker here, I write down and I put overlap tags. We put overlap start when before the first word in overlap, before the E, the people is speaking, or during. So before the first word in overlap, we need to put the overlap start. And after the last word in overlap, we need to put the overlap finish like this. So we can decide for this case if I choose to write 01, so to write down this, this speech. But we can choose to write, for example, the C1. And in this case, we can write the it's correct. So the two are correct. But we need to identify which people, who is telling the sentence. So we need to choose correctly the role here. Who is speaking? Okay. And for example, another
Selv i tillegg til dødsfall det noen av våre forsikringer som dekker selv forsikrede blir alvorlig syk.
For example, we have another
Helseforsikringen
overlap here. During these words, we can hear the second speaker. So we need to put the overlap option here. Even we can't understand the word of the second speaker, but we can hear that there is the second speaker while telling something else. So we need to put the overlap tags. If the people, the second speaker was telling something during this long, for example, during these words and stopped here, for example. So we need to put overlap finish here after the last word in overlap. In your case, the people, second people, said something during these words. So we need to
Helseforsikringen vår bare
put overlap here. Another example.
Hvor noen helseforsikringer kan også, som for eksempel også helhetsforsikring da, også helhetsforsikring da, også helhetsforsikring da, også helhetsforsikring da, også helhetsforsikring.
For example, for this, I can hear that the people, the second speaker, stop stopped to say something after these words, in these words, maybe here, if we can
Og så helhetsforsikring,
listen.
og så helhetsforsikring, og så helhetsforsikring da, og så helhetsforsikring da, og så
And,
helhetsforsikring da.
So I need to put the overlap here, but not at the end, because if I release in this segment, I can see that the speaker, the first speaker here, the C1 speaker spoke alone when he spoke this word da. So we don't need to put the finish after this word. If we are listening.
Og så helhetsforsikring da, og så helhetsforsikring da, og så helhetsforsikring da, og så helhetsforsikring da, og så.
So the second people stopped here, maybe here, but in the middle of this word. So we need to put the overlap finished after this word, like this. Okay. It's very important to remember our golden rule, because we don't need to put in the same segment the speeches of the two speakers, because in some case, some new people who read in the same times, for example,
Og så helhetsforsikring da.
The second people say, so some people read in the same segment, for example, the and they did something like this. It's not correct, because this is a speech of one speaker, and this is the speaker of the second speaker. We can't put together in the same segment. In case of we have overlap, we need to write one speech that is clear and to mark. For example, to mark the beginning and the end of the overlap. When the second speaker is telling something, and when he finished to say something, that is the overlap. So the overlap
Og
is
så helhetsforsikring da, og så helhetsforsikring.
Speaking in the same time. But if the people say this, the first speaker say, for example, this sentence, and after that, the second one say, yeah. So it's not overlap. We need to create a new segment for the yeah. That's the difference of overlap or not overlap. For the invalid, it's very important to note, don't click on this button of those buttons at the top right. Don't click on this invalid, note, reject, accept. Maybe different button in your interface, because I'm using a reviewing interface, but don't touch those buttons at the top right. You can save only, we can use only click this save button with a floppy disk icon here to save your work. You need to save after some segment, some modification, maybe after 5 segments, and at most after 10 segments, you need to save. So your work will be saved. Because if you forget to save, if you have a bug, if you have internet connection problem, if you have some matter, and you forget to save, so your work may be lost. Okay, so when you save, you can see your change has been temporarily saved, so it's okay for this case.
Jeg kan spørre om det. 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 Jeg kan spørre om det.
So for the invalid will be used when we can't understand what they are speaking. It's maybe because we don't understand, because we have two people speaking, overlapping, and in the same volume, in the same size, so we can't understand. So in this case, we can put the parts that we can't understand into invalid. If there is a frame loss, if there is for example strong noise, so we can't understand, so we need to cut the parts that we can't understand and put in invalid. For example, if I can't understand,
Det
for
her jeg kan
example,
spørre om det. Det her jeg
this
kan spørre om
part,
det. Det her jeg kan spørre om det. Det her jeg kan spørre om det.
so I put into invalid by clicking this valid button, cursor,
Det her jeg kan
click,
spørre om det. Det her jeg kan
and
spørre
it's invalid. In this case, if there is a red button like this, red point before the number of the order, the segment, that means that we have something that needs to correct. There is option that need to be checked. So in your case, we need to select what is the type of the invalid. We need to select between these those three options, AVS or AVS, PIL. The difference of these three options is that if this is a speech of one or both of two speakers, we need to, but if we can't understand, we need to choose the IVS. In the case of it's a human voice, but it's not one of the two speakers, but maybe television broadcast that we can hear, or a radio. So we need, in this case, to put OEADS. And the last option is for personal information label. For example, if the people is telling about his phone number, or his bank number or his social security number. In this case, we need to cut the number and put this part into PIL. So it's not a valid segment, but personal information. If you need to re-put this segment into valid, we can re-click.
Det her jeg kan spørre om det? Det her jeg kan...
And it's a valid. If we click,
Det her jeg kan spørre om
invalid.
det? Det her jeg kan spørre om det?
And for the invalid, we need to have at least 0.5 seconds. For valid segment, we can have the duration maybe less than 0.5 seconds. For example, for short words like yes, it's not a problem. But for invalid, we need to have at least 0.5 seconds. So in case of, for example, if we have some part that we can't understand, for example, here.
Det er bare noe spesifikt du lurer på? Det er bare...
And we can see that this is 0.2 seconds. It's less than 0.5 half a second, so it's not okay. If, for example, this part is invalid, for example, we can't understand, and AVS, it's not correct. We must have in the brief, we have the tab, and you can see that if the segment is invalid, we have at least 0.5 seconds. So in the case of we have an invalid segment in the middle like this, and it's less than 0.5 seconds, we need to drag to left or to the right to complete. And we can choose to drag to left or to right regarding of the sense of the segments, the sentence, the part of sentence in the adjacent segment. And the goal is to have the better sense as possible. So, for example, if better to drag to left, because, for example, if in this segment we have, for example, yeah, so we can drop with the invalid. In this case, we have the duration more than 0.5 seconds, so it's okay if you can't understand this part. Okay, but in your case, we understand
Ja, da har du kommet til
correctly this sentence.
riktig sted. Det er bare... Er det noe spesifikt du lurer på? Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted. Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted. Det er bare... Er det noe spesifikt du lurer på? Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted. Det er bare...
Specific. Okay. It's okay. So
Spør om det, spør om det, spør om det, spør om det, spør om det.
the correct sentence is like this, or this one. And it's a
Er
valid
det
one.
her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det 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 her jeg kan... Ja, jeg lurer litt på... Ja, da har du kommet til riktig... Ja, jeg lurer litt... Dekkes dette av forsikring? Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Er det
It's a
her
low
jeg kan
one.
spørre om det? Ja, da har du kommet til riktig sted. Ja, jeg lurer litt... Dekkes dette av forsikringen? Ja, hvis en kunde er involvert i en... Er det her jeg kan spørre om det? Ja, hvis så bør man gjøre et par... Ja,
So it's okay.
ja, hvis en kunde er involvert i en ulykke eller sånn annen nødsituasjon som dekkes av forsikringen, ja,
For example, we can hear that the people say,
ja, hvis en kunde er involvert,
so we need to write this. It's a modal word. We need to write. We can, if we have this speed, 0.5 half speed, normal speed. If in the case of the people speak, for example, very fast, and we need to hear correctly, in this case, we need to put the speed at half speed, for example.
ja, hvis en kunde...
So we can understand correctly. If there is repeated word, we can count how many the word was repeated in the segment. The waveform, it's like a zoom. You can use in general, I use it at 57%.